I'm leaning towards Trump just because my main focus as an outreach for the GOP party is looking at ways to enhance the minority community. And some of the ideals that Trump has as building entrepreneurship, gaining minority owners within the community, I think he's the best person that's really talked about it. I need him to talk about it a little bit more to gain my support for him. But no other Republican candidate has talked about the issues that's going on in the community. One thing that the Republican Party needs to do to win the election is to reach out to the minority groups. And I think that's very important. And I wish they would do more of it, but they're not. So I wanted to come here to listen to Trump to see what he has to say as in building businesses throughout the United States, but primarily looking at the minority community because that's where you have the less educated, job loss, high crime, etc.
He's got very high unfavorables among Latinos, African Americans. What have you seen from him that makes you think he's been reaching out to them and his policies would be favorable?
That is correct. He hasn't reached out as much, but with his business background is exactly what the community needs in the African American community. We have had politicians that has been the status quo that indicate that they want to invest in this and hasn't. So I feel that minority community best option would be Donald Trump if we look at businesses within the community. Everybody know black companies or entrepreneurs hire blacks. Hispanic business owners hire their culture. So he has a problem that he needs to fix if he gets the nominee of being the candidate for the Republican Party. He needs to fix that relationship with minority communities. Can he fix it? Yes. Some of the things that he does say about allowing individuals in this country as of right now, I don't think he's indicating that he wants to eliminate that. But there is a
You're talking about the Muslims?
Yes, there is a process of individuals enter into this country. One of my issues is that we have United States American citizens that breaks federal laws, regardless of whatever it is, that are sitting in federal prison. And we look at individuals that come into our country illegally that's breaking our law. And are we saying that we're not going to hold them accountable? And we're going to hold American citizens accountable? Just come into the country the right way.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
I don't think that he should have put a focus on one particular group because this is an issue. One problem that the Republican Party has that I've noticed is that they don't know how to communicate to other demographics. And that is a big issue. When you talk to other demographics, you need to associate issues to what they're going through. And that is a problem that we have as a party, and it's the reason why we don't do well at all in minority communities. So is he able to fix that? I think so. You know, I think he needs to explain himself more in detail of what he's saying. I don't think we can allow individuals to come into our country when we have issues that's going on now. We have massive shootings that's going on in our schools. We have higher homicide rates in the urban community. There is problems within the community itself that needs to be fixed before we allow other individuals to just come into our country, allow them into the United States. Let's solve our problems first.
Well, it's interesting you said that because something I constantly ask Trump supporters, they're very worried about immigration and Islamic terrorism, as they call it. But when I push back and say, what about the mass shootings here? Many of them just by white kids who are, mentally ill. They say, well, that's not terrorism and there's nothing really we could do, Second Amendment, yada, yada, yada. So do you think Trump is pointing to the foreign threat but not really focusing on the rampages that are going on here? I haven't heard him talk about any way to really prevent mass shootings.
No one has. No one on the Republican side has. Hillary has said something about it, but I think that's more of a to get elected type of scenario. That's something they need to talk about. That's something that is concerned millions of thousands of mothers that lost children to gun violence. Chicago last year. I mean, 400 to 500,000 people getting murdered. Milwaukee percentage was 159 increase to the homicide rate of last year. So that is something definitely, if candidates want to appeal to minority communities, they need to talk about that. When you're talking about the massive shootings and dealing with schools, those need to be talked about. Those situations need to be corrected. Work violence, it needs to be corrected.
But leading towards him, have you seen anything from him that makes you think he's not just, kind of throwing his fists around to gin up, nationalism and patriotism against a foreign threat? But have you seen anything from him that makes you think he's going to improve the domestic violence, police brutality? He's talked about how cops are villainized, but you obviously know African Americans are being disproportionately treated and killed by cops. If you're leaning to him, how do you think policy-wise he could focus on those things in America?
Well, that's what I want him to talk about a little bit more. And as we go on, I'm hoping that he gets to that point. When we're talking about cops shooting African Americans or even Hispanics, one of the things that concerned me with that, because we had the Obama administration that got involved. We had the Justice Department that got involved to see if there was violations. And what happened with that is that you had the minority community, because we had an African American president that sent the Justice Department there to say, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to find out what's going on. And when they investigated, guess what came back? There was no violation.
Which case you talking about?
All of them. They sent all the Justice Department investigate these issues, and then there was no prosecution at the federal level. So
as an African American, when you look at, a Tamir Rice in Cleveland getting shot in 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds, with the cops coming up, Michael Brown being left in the street for hours. I don't know, but I'm assuming you think the police aren't completely at no fault in the tensions and the violence that have happened.
They're right, and they should be held accountable. And then from that standpoint, that's where we as a community, because these are minority communities that vote and put these local individuals in. So if we get out and vote more and we put the correct people's in at the local level of government, we can get these prosecutions of these people that are committing these crimes, these law enforcement officers.
Does it give you pause as an African American and a Republican that when you go to these rallies, I mean, we've been to so many now I can't count around the country, that it's, 99% white? And there's not a diversity here. It's mostly white individuals.
Yes, that is a concern to me, because I would think that us as minorities would want to hear both sides of the story. When we stay on one side, that don't give us an insight of what's going on the other side, because we're not listening to what they're saying. And so if you're all the way on one side, you can't understand what they're going through, and they don't understand what you're going through. So when I first became a Republican, I wanted to hear both sides of the story. And my grandfather was a big key of me becoming a Republican. He died at 109, and he explained to me of my history and my heritage of where we came from. And we're more conservative than liberal.
Do you have pause? I ask a lot of people this just to because he came onto the scene originally with the whole birtherism, that President Obama wasn't born here. He still hasn't really corrected that. He just kind of dodges it and says, I don't like to talk about that. I mean, not that you like or dislike Obama because of his race, but do you have any pause that he kind of came onto the scene that way, and do you agree with him that the president wasn't born here?
To me, that was just totally ludicrous. I felt that it was more of a publicity, to get the Trump name out there. He is a brand. So he's selling millions of T-shirts and hats.
You don't see any racial undertones to it?
You could put race on it, a racial tone to it, because he's white and Obama's black. First African American president. There's going to be a racial tone associated with it. But I've learned to look over that. That was just a stupid comment for him to say that. Same thing that he's saying with, Ted Cruz.
Well, I think the reason I'm asking is I think a lot of his supporters, from what I've seen, from some of the things they say, they feel threatened by their values and cultures being taken away with Mexican immigrants and Arab people in America. So do you feel that his support Not that not that the majority are consciously racist people, but do you think there's racial undertones in his base? Because from what I've seen, there seems to be at least animus towards other minority groups.
If you notice, and I would definitely agree. If you notice, and one of the things that I've noticed is that race is going to be a part of our history. It's going to be there forever. And when I go take my son and I go into the minority community, and I go to my local store, it's you have the Middle Easterns that that's coming there as entrepreneurs that runs the gas stations and the liquor stores and other things. So demographics are coming into the community, and it's separated. Should everybody be racist? No. And it has a racist tone. Is it good for the country? No, but it is also causing issues within the minority community because now you see where there isn't enough jobs, so you have the higher crime rate within the minority community, and
Also, poor education.
yes, poor education. So it's there, and this is hopefully we can solve that issue, and we need to solve that issue as a country.